Yeah, the good thing is, so with this one specifically, tomorrow's junior day. The only junior day that I know of outside of Texas it's tomorrow is Tennessee. And actually one of the visitors that's coming tomorrow, Jabari Antoine, who's the top priority at cornerback for the 2025 cycle. He's at Westgate in New Iberia, where Derek Williams came from. His dad's actually the head coach of that program, and so he's seen Texas a ton because whenever Derek would visit Texas, who's usually the head coach of the program, taking him and Jabari down to Austin. But Jabari was originally scheduled to be at Tennessee, and he switched his plans to be at Texas. And the fact that Texas is the only school, like in the state of Texas, really doing their junior day this weekend is helping a lot. I think with the season and the way the program's trending, kids would pick Texas over an A&M junior day or an OU junior day. But it does help that you don't even have to deal with that problem because A&M and OU are both doing theirs next weekend on the 27th. So,
all right, let's just go down the list. I want to go kind of the first piece we'll talk about is kind of a group, and then we'll go position by position. We'll go 25s, and then and I'm just going off the list you posted on the site, Jordan. We'll go through 25s position by position, and then we'll finish it with 26 and 27. First group is the 3 Texas commits who are scheduled to be there. That's Deuce Williams, the linebacker out of Shadow Creek, Emory Winston, the tight end out of the state of Georgia, and then Brandon Brown, the defensive lineman from Florida. I would guess Brandon Brown of those 3 guys is probably the priority just because as of right now, when he steps on campus, Texas isn't going to have a D-line coach hired.
Yeah. There's also, he's kind of, since the Bo Davis firing has been really hit or miss with contact. So there's also the chance he actually doesn't even show up, if I'm being completely honest. Deuce Williams, Emory Winston, on the other hand, we're fully expecting them there. It'll be both their first times at Texas as an actual commit, not just a recruit. So interested to hear their feedback, kind of how it feels being on the different side of it. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the commits.
What do you think about, real quick, what do you think about Deuce Williams as a prospect?
I like him. I'm actually kind of who found him. I mean, he already had an offer whenever I saw him, but I was the first one to put a stamp on him and be like, no, this dude's a motherfucker. I like him a lot. He's 6'3", 195, long as shit, probably 6'7", 6'8" wingspan. He can move. He can literally play any linebacker position, like any linebacker position. You can also you can put him on the line in a 2-point. The high school level, he covers good enough to maybe be a big physical nickel. In college, he definitely won't be asked to do that though. And also, like with how his body is shaped right now, it's still early enough where if they really wanted to, they could kind of throw him in the Jelani McDonald position and use him even as a hybrid, maybe even as well. But that's really if it came to it. I do think at the end of the day, no matter what, he's a linebacker. And he's a perfect modern day linebacker because like Kendrick Blackshaw, we were talking about how Kendrick Blackshaw is really good for running downs, but you're fucked if you have to have him guard anyone, right? You have to take him out on 3rd down. Deuce Williams is a guy who can stay on the field all 3 downs and then go be on your punt coverage team as well. That's
I'm intrigued. The 2 positions that I've long been extremely intrigued by: the 5-tool tight end who can stay on the field no matter the situation, and the every down off ball linebacker who you never have to worry about him being a liability. I think those 2 things are really hard to find. Jordan, we'll look at running back. We got Jordan Davison from Modern Day, Tiger Ryden from DeSoto, Riley Wormley from South Lake Carroll, Wesley Yarbrough from Crosby. You think Tashard Choice has his guy in this group of 4?
Yeah. I wanted to wrap up Deuce Williams 1 second before we get on to running back. So another thing I like about Deuce, his dad actually played fullback at Baylor, and that was part of his first few conversations of him and his dad with Steve Sarkisian. Was because Sark and Baylor, or whenever his dad was at Baylor and Sark was at BYU, they actually played against each other, I think, in a bowl game or non-conference.
Oh, did they really?
Okay. So they were talking about that. And Baylor was always a school he kind of had his eye on. But even though that's where his dad played, he grew up watching Texas and rooting for Texas. And he always knew that was kind of where he was going as long as, they were going to recruit him. And they did and made him feel like a true priority. And he went ahead and shut it down. The thing with him, that he's kind of like he's going to need time. He's not going to be an instant impact guy in his freshman year at Texas. He's going to be a guy who's going to need two-ish years, I think, at least, to develop, kind of get his body under him again. Like, he's 6'3", 195. He needs to put on more weight, and he needs to add more muscle mass. And just looking at him, you can tell, like, his best days are, like, ahead of him for sure. Just 'cause his frame is awesome for a linebacker, and he has the right mindset too. So as long as he stays dedicated and can come to practice and bust his ass every day for a year or two, and he enjoys his time there, he's gonna be a difference maker on the field eventually. It's gonna take some time to cook the meal or to bake the cake,
Yeah.
So yeah, but for running backs, we got 4 coming this weekend in 2025. Jordan Davison, DeAndre Ryden from DeSoto, Riley Wormley, Wesley Yarborough. Jordan Davison is the main man for 2025 for Tashard Choice. It was always kind of Davison and Harlan Berry. Harlan Berry went ahead and shut it down, pledged to LSU a few weeks ago. That one's pretty much over with. The apartment complex I've been dealing with is finally calling me.
Of course, it's during the show.
Yeah.
You want to take that, Jordan?
Nah, it's all good. I'll call them in 22 minutes. They can wait. I've had to wait for them. They can wait for me. They're the ones getting paid, not me. So they need me to call them.
Yeah. Jordan Davison, by the way, number 2 ranked running back in the composite. Harlan Berry, number 1.
Yeah, and Jordan Davison, Modern Day. Another connection to Modern Day. Obviously, last year Texas pulled Brandon Baker from Modern Day. The year before, Spencer Shannon, the tight end signing from Modern Day. So Jordan Davison is definitely the number 1 guy now with Harlan Berry off the board, and kind of haven't watched a ton of film. The film that I have watched reminds me a lot of Jarrett Gibson, where it's kind of just like you get the ball and downhill right away. I think that's what Jarrett Gibson's best at, and I think Tashard Choice has a lot of tendencies that where all of his running backs are different in a way. They all share kind of like similar underlying tendencies, and with Jarrett Gibson, like I remember going when I went out and saw him in Nashville when I went out there in August. Coming away, I'm like, him and Cedric Baxter are very different, but the way they take the handoff and it's literally just like forward, it's the same thing. Jordan Davison has the same thing as well, where he gets the ball, foot in the ground, I'm gone. For the other running backs, DeAndre Ryden, he actually goes by Tiger. So if y'all ever hear me call him Tiger, that's like been his nickname since.
I did, and you went DeAndre. I was like, was he not going by Tiger anymore? But it's good to know. So.
Oh no, a lot of people don't know that. So yeah, he goes by Tiger. He's probably, I'd say probably second guy on the board somewhere in there. He's kind of a do-it-all back. I wouldn't say he's necessarily elite at anything, but he's great at everything. If that makes sense. He's actually a lot. I remember on our board last year when people were talking about why Trey Wisner isn't playing as a senior when he's a Texas commit at DeSoto. It was because Tiger Ryden as a sophomore was better than Trey Wisner as a senior, if I'm being completely honest. He was better.
And Trey Wisner's not bad.
He's not
Trey Wisner
bad.
can play.
Yeah, it's just Tiger's good. He's that good. The other guy is Riley Wormley. He's at South Lake Carroll. He was at South Lake Carroll this past year. He actually used to be at Colleyville Heritage, where Max Crosby's from. But Riley Wormley, it's always seemed like Texas or OU for him, TCU as well. Depending on how it shakes out with other guys, I think it could come down to Texas OU for him. He's definitely, lower on the board. He has offers from both schools and is getting recruited by both schools, visiting both schools. But, again, Jordan Davison and Tiger are both ahead of him. So, these visits are important even for guys like Wormley. Like, you need to keep these guys happy and prioritize in case, it doesn't go the way you want. Wesley Yarborough, on the other hand, he's from Crosby. He doesn't have a Texas offer. I'm not expecting him to get one. I think it's maybe a favor. I'm not sure who he's coming with or if he's going there by himself. But up to this point, he has like TCU, I don't know, UNC, a few other offers. But he, in my eyes, I saw him play this year with Fort Bend Marshall. They got destroyed. He couldn't really do anything. But I've seen him at a few camps and other stuff as well. Just, again, not really a Texas talent in my eyes. And on to receivers, we got a pretty big receiver group coming in.
Yeah, before we don't have time to get to all of these guys.
Yeah,
but there's one guy I want to ask you about. Ed Small out of Anderson, committed to Texas to play baseball, but you see the film of him playing football. He's going to be a power conference type recruit in football. Are we legitimately looking at Ed Small as maybe being like a legit two-sport guy in college? Because I know he's really good at baseball, but you watch the football film and everybody's intrigued by him as a football player. Like, I know there are guys that have talked about it. There are guys that you say, okay, maybe he could do it. Ed Small seems like he's going to be a guy that's going to have a legit chance to do both.
Yeah, I've actually I got to meet Ed Small for the first time in person a few weeks ago at the National Combine check-in. And I was like, man, big fan. Like, you're a legend in Austin. Just because, like, dude, he's literally putting up better numbers than Jaden Greathouse did in district play. While Jaden didn't play as much as he did because he'd be taken out in like the third quarter, it's still impressive nonetheless.
Ed Small doesn't have near around him what Jaden Greathouse did either.
That too. And everyone knows the ball is going to Ed Small because there isn't shit around him. Where at Westlake, they have Keaton Quebeca, Hunter Luke, other guys as well.
By the way, Keaton Quebeca signed with Kansas. So, yeah, you have a legit power conference receiver on the other side of the field.
Exactly. But I like Ed Small. Do I think he's going to get offered this weekend? I'll be honest, I don't. Do I think he could be offered by Texas down the road? Probably not, but I would love for it to happen. I honestly think he could play at Texas and is talented enough on the football field to actually make an impact for Sark and company. Main guys to know from this list of the receivers, Kelshawn Johnson from Hitchcock. I don't want to – yeah, kid's awesome. Ed's awesome. I loved him. I also met his parents actually last weekend at the Next Level Athlete Camp I was at. That whole family's great. For receivers that are important, Kelshawn Johnson, Marcus Harris, Tanuk Hines, Ja'Cory Watson, Manuel Choice. Yep. Okay. So Kelshawn is at Hitchcock.
Sark was at Hitchcock yesterday.
Yeah. Sark went out and saw Kelshawn at Hitchcock. Yesterday was funny. Kelshawn wasn't smiling in the picture, and I know Kelshawn pretty well. He's an awesome kid. Yes, sir, no, sir, like very respectful. This doesn't smile. Like, I'll take his headshot. So all these fans are getting mad at him because he wasn't smiling next to Sark and everyone.
He's not throwing up the horns right.
He commented like, "No, I like Texas. I just don't smile ever." That was his, and I was like, "Oh." But no, Kelshawn, Penn State, Tennessee, even Texas Tech is in it for him. He's a speedster, track guy for sure. And again, I never want to comp anyone to this guy, but if I was going to, if it's anyone in this class that reminds me of Xavier Worthy, it's Kelshawn Johnson. They both have that wiry, super fast kind of track build, almost kind of like the Devontae Smith build, where it's just kind of skin and bones, but you're not catching their ass.
Right.
That's what Kelshawn Johnson is. He's also 5'10", and like X is sinewy strong. And he's been incredibly productive at Hitchcock. They play at the 3A level, and they play. The last 2 years they've been playing in like a 4 or 5 team district, so they've been having to play mostly a non-district schedule.
Yeah.
So not the greatest comp, but he's definitely he's a game changer for college.
I see what you're talking about real quick. There might be another guy that I'm missing, but the 3 guys that I can really think of in my time following Texas that the track speed was able to translate to the functional movement and play speed on the football field, Roy Williams, Jamal Charles, Xavier Worthy were the 3 guys that like ran insane times in high school that were like legitimately like elite level fast, and the play speed on the football field matched up with the track time.
Yeah. No, Kelshawn Johnson can fly. And while it is early for him, there are probably 5 or 6 schools standing out. Texas is one of them. Like I said, Penn State, Tennessee. Yeah. Tech is very legit for him. His best friend is a quarterback at Hitchcock named Lloyd Jones, who's actually committed to go play quarterback at Tech in 2025. So that is kind of a little maybe Tech's one to watch there, but I think it's open enough where there isn't really a real leader at this point. Marcus Harris from Mater Dei. He's another Mater Dei kid coming down. For him, it's Texas, Oregon, USC, Georgia, OU, Ohio State. He's pretty much got everyone after him. One of the top guys in the country. He's been to Texas, not as much as Jordan Davison has, and I don't feel as good about his recruitment that I do as Jordan Davison's.
Mhm.
But, if you put a gun to my head and ask me to pick a school for Marcus Harris right now, I'd probably say Texas. Chris Jackson has him really high on the board, and, he's recruiting the hell out of him. Another thing that not a lot of people know, Chris Jackson actually went and played at Mater Dei. So he has that connection there as well. And, Marcus Harris, I believe this is his fourth time on campus since Chris Jackson's been hired, third or fourth. So he's making it a point to get to Austin, which is you want to see.
Let's talk about these tight ends, Jordan.
Yeah.
Talk about these tight ends, man.
Yeah.
Keati Armstrong and Nick Townsend both scheduled to be there. Man, I can't think off the top of my head the last time the state produced two like legitimate top end tight ends like these two guys.
Yeah. Keati Armstrong is, you put a NFL tight end body in like a lab, but the Keati Armstrong pops out. How tall is he? I think 6'4", 240, I believe, is his height and weight usually, or 6'6", 248, my bad. But he has a +8 wingspan. So
insane.
Yeah, athletic as hell, awesome kid as well. For him, it's always kind of been A&M, OU, Texas, and Bama, but it's been really fluid with who's actually been in front because the coaching changes and different things throughout the last 12 months. Nonetheless, Texas getting Ty Anthony Smith the last cycle, who also hails from Jasper, is really close to Keati. That's going to help them a lot. A&M did a great job whenever he visited A&M this past weekend. They did a great job on that. And, I had to lean one way or another. I'd say it's probably A&M or OU really setting the pace in this one. He hasn't been to Texas in a long time, though, so I really think that could get flipped around this weekend. Jeff Banks and him are talking pretty regularly. And it's clear that Keati and Nick Townsend are the two guys outside Emory Winston that they would take. Townsend, on the other hand, not a ton is known about him. I really don't know who else is involved in his recruitment. Looking forward to finding out this weekend. I do know he goes both ways for Dekaney. Some schools are recruiting him at D-line. Some schools are recruiting him at tight end. Some schools are just recruiting him, hoping to get him, and they'll figure it out when he gets there. Texas has told him they want him to play tight end, and they've even told him, like, they see some JT Sanders in him. I've kind of figured out that Jeff Banks is telling everyone they want them to be the next
right.
JT Sanders, but
they told Emory Winston that,
yeah, and Jordan Washington that, but yeah, so those are the two guys for tight end. Bear Tenney used to be at Lovejoy, probably going to Michigan. If he wanted to go to Texas, I don't think he'd be a take at this point, to be honest. But used to be at Lovejoy, is not a school in Utah. Keandre Johnson from Terrell, he only played D-line this past year, but we still have him listed as a tight end, so I listed him as a tight end on the list. I guess getting on to offensive lineman, the headliner is for sure Ty Haywood. Number 2 offensive lineman, the Lone Star State for 2025, behind Michael Fasusi from Louisville. Ty Haywood is actually from Mississippi, 6'2" kid. So Ole Miss, Mississippi State, they've always had kind of a little cool place in his heart, but they haven't really prioritized him a ton. So for him right now, the 3 schools at the front of his recruitment is Oklahoma, Texas, and A&M in that order. OU and Bill Bedenbaugh have done a great job of recruiting him. I've always kind of said I feel like with Michael Fasusi and Ty Haywood being the 2 like A1 or 1A and 1B guys in the state, it's really hard to get both of them. I've always felt that I think Texas is going to get Fasusi and I think OU is going to get Haywood, and they're going to split them just because, again, it's really hard to get both of them.
Yeah.
But
this is like Sark said the same thing in the 22 class. Texas really wanted Cam Dewberry. They really wanted Kelvin Banks, and even though they were kind of different type positional guys, like we knew we were, we recruit one or the other because we knew we weren't getting both.
Yeah.
So they prioritized Kelvin Banks, A&M prioritized Cam Dewberry, and that's how that deal went.
Yeah, so with Ty Haywood, while I do think they're going to end up getting split, I don't want to say like Texas is definitely not out of it for Haywood at all.
Right.
He's only been able to take 3 visits so far, or visits to 3 different schools: Oklahoma, Texas Tech, TCU. This is his first time ever at Texas, so really interested to hear what he has to say about it. every time I talk to him, I ask him, what do you think about the Denton Ryan guys that are at Texas? And his eyes always light up. That really is important to him with the success Anthony Hill's had there and JT Sanders, even Austin Jordan as well. Another important thing that I've been reading Texas recruiting info since I was in high school. Like I'm a nerd about this shit, right? I've never seen anyone comment that the Denton Ryan coaching staff has Alex De La Torre on it, but he's been coaching at Ryan for the last several years. Alex De La Torre, the old Texas fullback.
Yeah, no, Alex De La Torre is not at Ryan anymore. He's at he's at Wiley East.
What, he was there last year, I thought.
You're not thinking about his dad?
No, I'm pretty sure I saw him last year at the Ryan game I was at. I may be wrong. I don't know. We don't got a ton of time though, so I guess we'll keep it moving.
Hey, real quick, I figured out that tight end question we had the last time the state produced top level tight ends like Nick Townsend and Keati Armstrong. How about 2019? When you talk about injuries derailing a career, man,
Baylor Cup.
What would happen to Baylor Cup's career had it not been for the injuries? Baylor Cup was the #1 tight end in our in-house rankings and the composite. Austin Stogner was a consensus top 3 guy. And then Jalen Weidemeyer was out of Dickinson, was 14th in the composite in terms of tight end rankings. So those 3 4-star tight ends that were Baylor Cup still ended up being productive in college. It's just, you'll never know how good he could have been had it not been for the injuries.
Yeah. So next for O-line, Lamont Rogers from Mesquite Horn. He's the #3 offensive tackle. Pretty much on a consensus in the state of Texas behind Haywood and Fasusi. I think the gap between him and Haywood is a lot bigger than the gap between Haywood and Fasusi in terms of talent, if that makes sense. But he's still a top 100 player. He's a number 99 overall prospect. He might actually not be at Texas weekend. He told me Tennessee or Texas a few days ago, and hasn't given me an update since then. So I'll be checking back with him when we get off air. Really athletic prospect, kind of more of a developmental guy though than anything, I think. He plays basketball with his team, kind of like how DJ Campbell did, and but obviously DJ Campbell was a 5-star and was ready to play. He's going to need time. Lamont Rogers is more of a developmental guy. I think I lean towards the field versus Texas right now, if I'm being honest. I spoke to a source that told me already NIL is going to be very important in this recruitment, and usually when it's this early on for a developmental prospect, Texas usually starts going other ways, if I'm being completely honest. Another big name that a lot of people are going to like, Byron Washington, the big boy from DeSoto, 6'8", probably around 400 pounds. I put in a crystal ball in the fall. Texas has been the leader in this one by miles for a long time since they offered at the end of July. He loves Kyle Flood. Kyle Flood loves him. He loves the big human aspect of it. He likes the success other past DeSoto players have had at Texas, and also other guys that looked like him out of high school, where he admitted this over the record. He's like, I know I'm not the best guy, but I know I'm big as hell. A lot of guys like me out of high school, they're in similar shoes, have gone to Texas and been really successful. That's something that sticks out to him as well.
Yeah.
Other guy, Dramod Odoms, he's from Houston Lamar. He's our number 64 overall prospect for the 25 class. We have him listed as an offensive tackle. I saw him at a camp last weekend. He's a guard, or he will be a guard at the next level. He's 6'4", lists himself at 305. He's really probably in the 270s just looking at him. I'm going to be honest. I was kind of disappointed in his performance. Camps don't tell you a lot of stuff. They obviously don't have pads on. And I know, like, seeing how he was working out, you can tell no one's ever trained him or taught him how to work in these camps.
For sure.
But just looking at him, the body type, he doesn't really fit the big humans mold that Kyle Flood kind of covets. So do I expect him to get an offer? Not really. But if he got one this weekend, I wouldn't be surprised at the end of the day. Connor Carty from Prosper, he is a really good interior offensive line prospect, but he's not necessarily like huge like the guys Flood usually goes after. He picked up A&M and a few other big offers in the last week. Chance he could get Texas, but again, he doesn't really fit what Kyle Flood usually goes after, so maybe not. Jordan Coleman on the O-line group is really good, and they're in it for a lot of guys.
Did you mention Jackson Christian from
Yeah, he was gonna be next after Jordan Coleman.
Okay.
Yeah, I do say that, gringo. With Jordan Coleman, we have him listed as a guard or as a tackle. He's also going to be a guard at the next level. I really loved his performance. He's actually a lot better than I thought he was this past weekend.
Nice.
He was just putting dudes in the dirt that I didn't think he could do, to be honest. The thing with him, he is a triplet. He's one triplet who has a Texas Tech offer named Devin Coleman. The other one doesn't have any offers. Jordan, on the other hand, I think is around a dozen offers or somewhere in there. You know, y'all can kind of figure it out. Jordan is the best one. Jordan has said on record it's very important to him that he gets to play with his brothers. So that could be part of this recruitment as well. Willing to see which colleges are willing to, I guess, take that gamble. Jackson Christian, I put in a crystal ball for him the same day I put one in for Byron Washington. Texas has led for a long time in this one. I do need to check back in with my source at P&G. A&M came by and offered him earlier this week. You know, the reason I say I want to check back in is because kids from Southeast Texas, you know, usually they trend to A&M and College Station more than they do to Austin.
Yeah.
Both his parents work in the refinery. You know, he's blue collar through and through. And again, kids like that go to A&M, not Texas. I guess on the D line,
there's one guy I want to start. I want to make sure we get to on the D line.
Mm-hmm.
Landon Rink is a Texas legacy.
Mm-hmm.
How much does the Bo Davis departure hurt with him?
To be honest, I don't think it affects him.
Okay.
I still think he's ending up at Texas no matter what. So,
and this is a recruitment where I would assume like the Texas staff probably learned their lesson with Colton Vasek. Like, hey, don't take these legacies for granted and give yourself more work in the fall than you need. Just if you want the kid, just get it done.
Yeah, true. So for D linemen, headliners, I'd say Lance Jackson, Zion Williams, Chad Woodfork, Kamorian Morgan, Nasir Wyatt. Lance Jackson, at this point in time, I think he's ending up at Texas, Arkansas, or Tennessee. I tend to lean Texas. I've been close to putting in a crystal ball for some time now, but you know, I wanted to talk to Lance coming out of this weekend and get a better read on it before I move on potentially doing that.
Yeah.
But as it stands, I do think Texas is ultimately where Lance Jackson is going to end up.
It's interesting because I remember you reported that when Landon was coming out, I don't remember if it was his portal recruitment or his initial recruitment, that family really liked PK when PK was at Washington.
Yeah, so it was when Landon was in high school. Washington was in his top 5 whenever PK was there, and they actually had an official visit scheduled to go out there. And then COVID hit, and that kind of went by the wayside. But PK stayed in touch with the family, and, I mean, he's been recruiting Lance since Lance was in middle school effectively. So that relationship is really the one carrying most of the water there. Zion Williams from Lufkin, talked to him in November. He made it very clear Texas or TCU is his 2 favorite schools. And he even mentioned to me that Texas is slightly ahead of TCU. A lot of that was because of Bo Davis, though. So we're going to have to see, you know, how this is going to go this weekend. Obviously, there still isn't a D-line coach, so we really aren't getting the full answers we want.
Yeah. With the exception of the 2 guys we mentioned, Lance Jackson and Landon Rink, who obviously have different ties to Texas. Yeah. That's going to be the theme with that whole D-line group is what were you told? What does it sound like? Are you optimistic? How do you feel about it right now?
Yeah. But that one, we're just going to have to see afterwards. Floyd Guidry from Spring High is a guy they offered like right around signing day. And Hank and I talked to him at National Combine check-in and seemed things are moving very quickly. And Hank and I even had a conversation about potentially writing his commitment story because we think there was a chance he was going to pop this weekend. Right. Now with Bo Davis out, could it happen? Maybe, but I doubt it. So that's kind of Floyd Guidry. The edge rushers, Nasir Wyatt from Modern Day. I mean, everyone in America is after him. I'm not sure if he's even cut it to like a top 12 yet or top 10. Looking forward to chopping it up with him after. He's also, you know, like I said, at Modern Day, they're trying to keep that pipeline flowing, even on the defensive side of the ball. So excited to hear what he has to say afterwards.
Well, if it helps with Nasir Wyatt, the 2 coaches that were recruiting him at Alabama are no longer on staff at Alabama. So,
well, bang.
Holman Wiggins and Coleman Hutzler, neither one of them's there anymore.
Yeah, that's what we like to hear. Chad Woodfork at Humble Summer Creek. If you've been reading Horns 24/7, you should know I've been saying for probably months now, Texas is the leader for Woodfork. I think their best position down the stretch as well. Their first big-time offer came months before USC or Georgia did. He still is only at about 20 offers, and USC, Georgia, Texas are really is only like 3, I would say, like major powers or blue bloods. He's going to get more. I've had a lot of questions about him. He doesn't have great production. He only had 3 sacks this past year and is an edge rusher. But the thing with him, he tests like a wide receiver does.
Yeah.
Like Zena Umazulu, a lot of people like to rag on Zena. Did he put up a ton of numbers? No, but he tested great. What if I told you that Woodfork tests better than Zena at literally every single metric?
Yeah, man. And the great thing about with Zena is, with Trey Moore and Colin Simmons in front of him, you don't really need him to play this year. You can see what you can get out of that prospect. See if you can turn that prospect into a player.
Exactly. So Woodfork is going to be important. The thing with him too, I forgot to mention. Every time I'm going to have to see him, I've double checked this with him because it was always just really weird to me. But Texas had Bo Davis as his primary recruiter. So they're going to need to talk with him this weekend, or maybe they've already talked to him over the phone about it. I assume so.
It's probably because that's Bo's area, like North Houston and like east of 45. Like Bo had North Shore because he's got ties there. So it was probably just it was Bo's area.
Yeah. So he's going to need a new primary recruiter. They're going to have to figure that out. Kamorian Morgan is another edge from Red Oak. Top 100 guy, Texas, SMU, Georgia. Those are the main 3 right now, according to a source close to him. A lot of people are going to scoff at SMU next to Texas or Georgia. They're very legit for Kamorian. They're also legit for Elijah Barnes as well. SMU is really trying to turn this thing around, and they're putting a lot of money into this program. They're going to be aggressive with guys that are, in their territory like Kamorian Morgan, Elijah Barnes. They're not going to go down without a fight. So, Kamorian Morgan getting back to campus is important. He hasn't been back to campus since, I believe, the elite camp in June, which was his first time there, I think. There's other guys that school with Texas offers, Taz Williams, Braden Robinson. If I'm being honest, Kamorian Morgan is the highest priority of them all. He is an SEC D lineman, a true SEC D lineman, and he's really just starting to put it together. He can finish a lot higher than his ranking is as well. For linebackers, Riley Pettijohn and Bo Barnes from Skyline are the main 2. Bo Barnes and Elijah Barnes are the same person. He goes by Bo in person. So, Pettijohn from McKinney, I think Texas' best position to land him down the stretch. Even after Jeff Choate left, I still felt the same. I think just at everything they'd done up to that point, they weren't really going to lose a ton of momentum in the recruitment. It's kind of funny for Pettijohn and Bo Barnes. My read for both of them is that Texas is the leader and that it's actually Florida State who's in second place for both of them. Florida State has just done a really, really good job of recruiting both of those guys. Florida was also involved for both of them at one point, but that's kind of out the window when they tore their staff apart. USC was also in it for Pettijohn, but he told me that before they cleaned house there as well. So there's a lot of fluidity in his recruitment. There's a lot of fluidity in Elijah Barnes. Ultimately, I feel better about Elijah Barnes' chances of ending up at Texas, but I still think Pettijohn, gun to my head, I think Pettijohn ends up at Texas.
It's been a minute since Texas got a kid from Skyline.
Yeah. Corners.
By the way, Peter Jenkins is on staff at Skyline now, if anybody didn't know that.
Yeah, every time I write about Bo Barnes, I write about that. He's actually the linebackers coach and is Bo's position coach. So looking forward to getting out there in the spring and chopping it up with those 2 guys again. For corner, Kobe Sellers, Jabori Antoine, Caleb Chester, those are the guys that have been offered. 3 guys that haven't been offered are Swade Griffin, who's Michael Griffin or Cedric Griffin's son.
Cedric's son, yeah.
Cade Phillips and Zay Gentry. Honestly, I think Cade Phillips and Zay Gentry could both leave without offers. It's a weaker in-state defensive back class. They're going to need to offer more guys. As much as I like Sway Griffin, I'm effectively who actually found him. Don't think he's a Texas guy, to be honest. I think he could be. He has a lot of potential, but as it stands right now, I don't really see it. Kobe Sellers is actually a heavy lean towards OU right now, even though he's at Shadow Creek with Deuce Williams, and they're a pretty tight-knit group of kids over there. He's leaning towards OU. There's several crystal balls in. If you had to ask me, that's where I think he ends up. But I know Texas really, really does want him, so they're going to do what they can this weekend to maybe flip that momentum because Texas at one point was the leader for him. So, I mean, it's kids. Stuff changes, obviously, but It's always fluid. Jabari Antoine, he's probably the number one corner target, I'd say, at least in my opinion. I think he is. Talked about him earlier. He hails from New Iberia, Westgate, where Derek Williams came from. His dad's the head coach. For him, LSU, Tennessee, OU, Georgia, Texas, those are the main ones. He's been to Texas close to 10 times or a dozen times at this point, which I think is more than he's seen any other school. You have to like that a lot, and you have to like that he keeps coming back, and it's not because they're taking Derek Williams on recruiting trips anymore. They're going for themselves. So that's important. Then on safety, Jonah Williams, Galveston Ball, I have him listed as a safety. He's a 5-star athlete. We have him as a linebacker. Our scouting team,
real quick, I don't think Texas has had a Galveston Ball kid on the roster since Casey Hampton, unless I'm forgetting somebody. So
no, I think you are correct. For Galveston Ball and Jonah Williams, he prefers to go both ways at the next level. Is anyone going to let him do that? I doubt it. They might. If he has to pick one position, he prefers safety. Texas used to recruit him at linebacker. 24/7 has had him listed as a linebacker because their scouting team ultimately believes his highest ceiling is at linebacker, like they do safety for Kobe Black. But after Jeff Choate left for Nevada, I actually was speaking to a source near Jonah, and they told me that Texas is now recruiting him to play safety. And now Gideon and Terry Joseph, all those guys are involved with him as well. He's arguably the highest ranked. I think he is the highest ranked guy on the list, or one of them for sure. Demetrius Brisbane from Tyler Chapel Hill. We have him listed as an athlete. He plays quarterback at the high school level, but he's getting recruited to play safety. Currently committed to SMU. A big part of him committing to SMU, though, was Keenan Hall, who was either his primary or secondary recruiter. Keenan Hall was the old SMU running backs coach who's now coaching running backs at Baylor. So Demetrius Brisbane potentially flipping to Baylor is very real. Sel Reyes is a maybe. He's another guy that has a tech. He's the only other safety besides Jonah Williams and Demetrius Brisbane that's in-state that has a Texas offer. Sel Reyes, his half-brother's Antonio Johnson from A&M, and he has a cousin on the OU roster. So I don't think Texas, but that one has a long way to go. I also think they have guys on the board higher than him. And then the other safeties on here are guys I honestly don't think will get offers. The only one that I think has a shot is Jaden Sanders, the kid from Kilgore. Michael Terry, the athlete from Alamo Heights, he is listed as athlete. I have no idea what Texas is recruiting him at.
So I was asking, what is he right now?
He doesn't have an offer from Texas. He also, even though he's like our number 40-something player, he's missing a lot of big-time offers like UT A&M. I get asked, I forget the dude's name on a board. He asks me like once a week why Texas hasn't offered him. To be honest, I still don't know. I loved him a lot when I went and saw him play. The problem is he played like 8 different positions, and after watching him, I'm like, I have no idea what the hell he is at the next level. I don't know what he is. And he's 6'3", big and fast and strong, but it's like, what position is he going to play? And I think that's a big part of why a lot of schools have been hesitant to pull the trigger, but maybe we could see him pull the trigger this weekend. So
there's your junior day rundown.